Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Criminal Justice meeting. It is, we're running a little bit late, so we apologize. We'll call this to order. Roll call.
Commission members Brown.
Present.
Carter. Harris.
Present.
Herr. Present. Rodriguez.
Present.
Vice Chairman Little.
Present.
Chairman Vieira. We have a quorum.
You want to lead us in the flag salute?
Absolutely.
Please, everyone rise.
Put your hand over your heart and repeat with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any presentations at all whatsoever?
No, sir.
Okay. No cards from the floor on any items. We'll pass that. Consent calendar. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from last meeting?
Yes.
Do
Move to accept.
we have a motion to accept?
Second.
We have a second? Passes 4-0. Did somebody not vote? 5-0. Perfect. We'll go right into new business.
Good morning, Vice Chair Little and Commissioners. Before you is a draft of an ordinance we'd like you to review and we'll discuss today as it relates to oversight vehicles, and hoping for a recommendation to the City Council as you review and go through this process. Currently, we have a local ordinance that relates to commercial vehicles and by weights and sizes it relates to parking in residential zones and other specified areas throughout the city. But we're getting numerous complaints daily as it relates to recreational vehicles, trailers, motorhomes, those type of vehicles that are a potential public safety hazard beyond just the scope of just being something that doesn't look very good throughout our community, and I'll have some examples I'll show you. Currently, right now, as we deal with RVs, people can park on the public right-of-way for up to 72 hours without having to move the vehicle. So consequently, what's happening with folks is, for compliance, is they move their car every 3 days in front of their neighbor's house or around the corner or down the block or some other place around the city. So you can see there's some examples here throughout the city that we've taken pictures of. But beyond that, there's a public safety issue here as it relates to pedestrian traffic and also vehicles being able to see around. Some of these are rather large and are hard to see visibly around for people backing out of their driveways, or especially as it relates to that photo earlier, parked near a corner. That's a problem right there. Okay, people can't see around the corner, becomes like a blind corner for visibility. So, and it's growing throughout the community, so as more and more, and probably, people, rightly so, if the economy is improving, more and more people are doing things recreationally, we're going to see more of this. And in other communities, what they've done, this is a rather large motorhome as an example right here in a cul-de-sac. Okay, so the complaints obviously are about visibility for people and the safety aspect of it. So Jocelyn will come forward with what she's put together as far as an ordinance, but the thing is, it addresses size and it addresses what's reasonable based on people loading and unloading them, those things as well, and that's why that's there for your view. Okay, so I'll have Jocelyn come up.
Good morning. The California Vehicle Code expressly authorizes a city to adopt an ordinance or resolution prohibiting or restricting the parking of certain vehicles on certain streets or highways, or all of them, during all or certain parts of the day. The one proviso is that you have to provide adequate signage and adequate notice before you start enforcing it. So we've put together an ordinance that prohibits the parking of any oversized vehicle as defined in the code, which you'll see in front of you, on public streets. We've carved out some exemptions, so commercial vehicles that are on a street for immediate delivery or pickup for like a UPS or a FedEx truck, those kinds of things, may be on the public street. A federal, a governmental vehicle of some sort, fire truck, that kind of thing is exempted out as well. And we do allow for RVs and other oversized vehicles in residential zones for up to 24 hours for the purpose of loading or unloading. And then a couple of other things that have to do with construction and landscaping businesses. So the primary thing that we're going to do before we start, assuming the ordinance is adopted, is put out the signage, make a determination about the number of signs that need to be placed throughout the city and where in the city. It would definitely be near all of the off-ramps on 14 that lead towards the city. And the signs will cite the ordinance section. It will identify the fact that it is applicable throughout the city. There's case law that indicates that should be sufficient. We also did, our paralegal Meg did a little research on local storage facilities that handle recreational vehicle storage. I think you have a copy of that. The rates are really very, very reasonable, so there's no reason for people really to store their RV on the street in front of their house. It's covered at a facility, it's safe, it's secure, and it's very affordable. So we think all of these things in conjunction make this a reasonable ordinance, and we would like to ask that you recommend it to City Council.
Further, should you make this recommendation and the council adopt this ordinance, we would be a very aggressive and vigorous campaign for public information as it relates through social media, as well as the city's website, Cinemark, some of the things that we've been using to advertise as it relates to public safety as well, and advertising the programs we're doing, just to kind of get the ball rolling. So if you make that recommendation, should you do that and the council approve it, then obviously there would be a period of time for adjustment for the community as well.
Question. I'm in total agreement with the ordinance. My one question and or concern I would have, can the 24-hour period be extended a little bit longer? And the reason I ask that question is you take a family that's getting ready to go on vacation with their RV, they park it out in front, they clean it, they load it, and if they're towing a boat, it's going to take longer than the 24 hours. That's the only concern I would have, is that a family is allowed to go ahead and load up everything, because every driveway will not accommodate even just a little bit of it. So I think we ought to consider some of the families that have those issues. That would be my only concern.
There's nothing that precludes us from making that a longer period of time. We just sort of arbitrarily thought 24 hours was fine, whatever would be your...
And I'm not saying a week, but a lot of times for a trip like that, it takes a couple days to get everything lined up and ready to go.
Well, the reason we're here is to have this discussion, and then whatever recommendation that you think is appropriate as a commission, that's what we'll move forward with.
This only has to do with 22 feet. That's the.
There are
20?
length and width and height restrictions that,
Which is,
under this ordinance, constitutes an oversized vehicle. So 22 feet or more in length, 7 feet or more in width, 7 feet or more in height. And it's any one or combination of those dimensions,
so if they have a 17-foot trailer, it can park there and stay there?
as long as it's not 7 foot wide or 7 foot high.
And it'd have to be attached. You can't leave a trailer unattached to
That's
the public street.
Okay. Four-wheel drive, that doesn't fall into this category
Well,
whatsoever?
we obviously know with some lifts and things that we see, but of course, common sense applies here as
Right.
well.
Okay.
So it's obviously the discretionary issue, and we don't want to take that ability away from anyone that's out there enforcing this.
What about the sea containers? Does it land on this category?
No, we already have an ordinance as it relates to sea containers that are put, or for people for moving containers in the street. There's a permitting process that already exists through the city for those for a temporary basis while people are loading them.
I see a lot of the sea containers, number of the sea containers is growing throughout the city, and business people using it for the storage. If they, as long as they allow, which is, we can call it, private lot,
I believe we I believe we already have some things that deal with code enforcement and zoning as it relates to sea containers, even on private property. Okay, this is mainly to be dealing with the public domain.
So the days of taking that motorhome and moving it 2 feet back or 2 feet forward, and they
Right.
say, we moved it, it's been moved.
Right.
Those days are going to be gone.
Correct.
I'm pretty sure there is like a safe areas they can park. Have you guys considered issuing permits?
We considered it and rejected it for a variety of reasons. A little harder to keep on top of, and the determination of where appropriate locations would be,
Subjective.
yeah.
Would this be an issue that the code enforcement would handle? Would it be mainly
I
code
think it
enforcement?
primarily be the parking folks.
Okay.
Correct.
Code enforcement could, I suppose, but I don't really think they
Curious.
focus on that. I think it would be our parking
Yeah,
people.
they have the authority, obviously, based on their citation ability and things to enforce any ordinance the city has, but it would be primarily a function of public safety's parking enforcement group.
So if we and I are taking a road trip in our big monster RV and
Oh,
we
my.
want to stop and visit you, we can stay there for 24 hours?
Depending on whatever you term, that was, again, as Jocelyn pointed out, was a number we came up, which we believe was reasonable at the time. If the commission deems that's not reasonable, based on like someone visitation, technically per ordinance, they're not supposed to be camping in the street anyway. Okay, so someone's not supposed to be hooking electrical and water and those things to an RV parked in the street. Obviously, if you're loading it, you would do those things. But for someone to actually stay in it out in the street's not appropriate.
Jocelyn probably doesn't want to stay longer than 24 hours anyway.
It's just such an interesting visual. I don't know where to go with that.
Now, this doesn't affect driveway parking at all.
As long as it's not obstructing the sidewalk, then it doesn't affect it.
Yeah, our
There-
current ordinance addresses that as well.
And what is the current ordinance as far as an RV in the driveway?
Well, as long as it's on a paved portion of the premises, it is allowed to be stored there. There is a provision in the, I believe it's the residential chapter of the zoning ordinance that provides that future development would, for future homes, you would have to have an RV stored behind the front plane of the house, if that makes any sense at all.
So in the
Current houses-
backyard?
Yeah, essentially. Current houses aren't built that way. There's no room for that, so we don't enforce it.
As
with
long as they're
existing-
not blocking the public
Yeah.
sidewalk or some other way that's intrusive to the neighbor, then
Okay.
you're fine.
So I guess what Howard brought up too was a good idea as far as, people planning a trip and this and that. Unfortunately, people can plan a trip for a week and a half and have it parked there and charging the batteries and whatever, and flushing out the tanks and doing whatever they need to do. How do we look at that and say, would take that under consideration too, that if somebody was parked there for a couple days and let's say they get turned in, is that a possibility that's under the discretion of the person that shows up and says, what's going on? Well, we're planning for a trip here, or do we put that and implement that,
Well,
something in
we,
there?
we could also come up with develop a matrix where they report that they're going to be doing that, but a week is unreasonable.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
I
no,
mean, it
I
would take
just-
me
yeah,
that
no,
long
I
to
just-
get ready for a trip. I mean, if you want to extend that time to even 48 or 72 hours that you believe is reasonable, but even a trickle charger on a motorhome takes 24 hours. I mean, so there's things to that. But again, that's your discretion as what you believe is reasonable by everyone's experience and how you might think that might impact the public. But if we have to develop a reporting system where people can report that they're bringing their motorhome to prepare for a trip, and then we can flag that, we can certainly do that.
To me, that would be the right thing to do, simply because if you put it there right now, we have 72 hours now for a motorhome to be parked on the street. And I see a lot of that stuff being already abused as it is. It seems to me, and I don't know how much taxing it is on you guys as far as some type of reporting system that would sit there and say, I'm going on vacation. I'd like to sit there and
You already thought
register
of
that, here's my address, here's my motorhome. It's going to be parked here for a day and a half, 2 days while I get prepared.
We can,
Right.
we can address that, and we can address that through the public outreach on a number that they can call.
And that
Public
doesn't
safety
need to be
enforcement.
codified in the ordinance. That could just be some regulations that we promulgate in order to implement the ordinance. It's probably more appropriate that way in any event.
And I think that's fair. I just think it's important that the residents of the city have the availability to be able to do something like that without looking over their shoulder and breaking the law.
Understood.
And just be aware, people call us now to let us know they're doing that. So people are already basically doing that if they know they're going to be bringing, because they don't want to get a parking ticket, maybe as it relates to street sweeping or some other issue. So we work with people as far as a variance as that issue is concerned.
You know, there's, in a neighborhood where I'm at, there's a motorhome that's parked frequently. They have a disabled son, and they use that frequently as far as this and that. Is there things that, you know, I mean, you know, we all in this neighborhood don't, it doesn't bother us. You know, we're on a cul-de-sac too, and we know that the son is disabled, but that motorhome is a major part of this son's life. Is there things that could be?
It's an ADA compliance issue. That's their vehicle that, you know, of course, there's issues related to that too, and how you question someone on if that's a reasonable request on their part or not. But obviously, again, common sense comes into play. You know, if something's going to create a certain hardship for someone in a situation like that, then obviously we're going to work together with those folks to make sure that we're not being punitive. Right. Again, the city's goal, we talk about this all the time as we talk about ordinances, is compliance, not to be punitive. Our goal is not to go out and fine people and cite people unless we absolutely have to.
Okay.
Thank you. If you're inclined to do so, you could take a vote on whether you recommend that City Council adopt this.
But they need to have a discussion about that change that you're considering.
So the motion.
So we need some direction as that's concerned.
The motion would have to include the change to lengthen the hours.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Or a reporting system.
You don't have to put that in the ordinance. As far as we'll take direction on that, and I'm telling you that we can do that. And we will do that. That's a reasonable thing to do, to have people have the ability.
If you would rather not put a hard, fast number beyond this 24 hours in the ordinance, that's certainly your option if you wish to extend it out. If you don't, then we've already received the direction from you that we should implement some regulations that allow for notification and giving a little extra time where it's appropriate. So the number of hours for purposes of the ordinance is entirely up to you.
So with that, instead of considering extending a 1 day to a 3 day, we've already given direction on some type of reporting system that would allow people not to violate the ordinance if they're there 48 hours.
Yes.
Okay.
What's the wish? Anything?
I'll make the motion that we approve the ordinance with the inclusion of extending the 24-hour period.
In the ordinance, or just for us to implement regulations? Those are two different options.
Okay, I guess to implement regulation.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, I'd go with that. Do I have a second? Or? Any comments? Lisa?
How long are we going to extend that for? Is it going to be?
We're going to leave that up to them.
Them up as far as, yeah. Yeah, instead of sitting there, I think what I'm understanding, instead of putting there that 24-hour to a 72 or 48-hour, it's going to stay that under the discretion of reportings or something that would come back and a recommendation to the city council as far as that. Does that sound good? So, vote. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Scott, how are you, sir? Good.
Good morning, everybody. Just the button on the side. Good morning, everyone. Deputy Scott is going to be our new Community Relations Deputy. Deputy Ruiz has moved to Schools Unit, so he will be with us. So we welcome him. We're going to start with our Crime Commission report. Our burglary suppression team for the month of August had 8 felony arrests, 7 search warrants, 5 warrant arrests. They didn't recover any firearms in August. However, they did recover $30,000 worth of property. For our Lancaster team, felony arrests, they had 19, 22 misdemeanor with a total of 41 arrests. They recovered 3 stolen vehicles and 3 firearms. For our robbery team, they had 22 felony arrests, 5 search warrants. They recovered 2 firearms. For the month of August, they had a total of 34 robbery arrests, 20 armed, 14 strong-armed. For our crime prevention, we have our most wanted that we do every Thursday. We go to Channel 3 Spectrum News and we tell them who we're looking for as far as any felony suspects or attempt to ID suspects. We do safety presentations to the schools. We did neighborhood watch meetings. And for our active shooter training, Deputy Addington from our school safety unit, he coordinated a active shooter training with our SEB, which is our SWAT with our department, and the school administrators right before school started. And they did a great job at doing some training with the deputies and the administrators. So that was some good training that our own patrol deputies attended. Basically, they were given a scenario and handled the scenario. So that was pretty awesome that they came out and did some training with us. The next one, our community engagement, was our National Night Out. We did August 1st, myself, I was out in Lake LA. Deputy Ruiz was out in the Antelope Acres area, and Captain was able to attend both. He went 1 hour to one side of the county and then drove over to the other side. And Allie went with LANCAP to one of our apartment complexes, and they were able to do, engage with the kids and pass out stickers and stuff like that with the kids. And one of our apartment complexes, I can't remember what the name of the apartment complex is, but they were able to have fun with the kids there. We have our Coffee with Wets. It's every Tuesday. Ruiz was the one that would attend that, so now Scott's going to be attending those as well. And for our burglary suppression team, what they did along with fire is they went to the Academy for Advancement of Children with Autism. Same thing, they just set up the fire engine was there, our deputies were there, and they had a good time with the deputies. They were able to meet the deputies. These are children with autism, and so the kids really enjoyed the deputies there. Deputy Jeremy Farley was recognized by MAD, Southern California, with the Double Century Award for he had 206 driving under the influence arrests for the year of 2016. So just in 1 year alone, he had 206 arrests for driving under the influence, and he was recognized on that award. And here's some of the pictures. Just go ahead. That's our National Night Out with the city. And the next one. And that's the first picture at the top is our our burglary suppression team at the autism school, and then that's Deputy Farley at the corner. I think that's it. Our next presentation is going to be our ComStat. Our rapes are up by 6. We had our burglaries. Go ahead and go to the next one. Sorry. Our burglaries were coming down a little bit in the month of August. Our grand theft vehicles are down. Our thefts are up for the month of August. Next one is going to be our LEAPS report. For the LEAPS, we had 28 arrests. Sorry, am I going too fast, Scott? Sorry.
You lost us. I think we're a little slow up here.
Slow down. Okay, here we go. Our LEAPS report is going to be 20. We're going to have 28 arrests.
Let's go back.
Okay.
If we could.
Yes.
There's a few of us who were playing catch up. Correct?
Sorry.
Let's start with that. The reports on the ComStat all over again, please.
Yes.
There we go. Let's start over. Yeah.
Okay, so part 1 crime. You didn't see that one.
No, I didn't see that one either.
Ready? Sorry, we'll do
Go
it
ahead.
over.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I went too fast. Okay. On our next slide, it's going to be our rapes. And for the month of August, we had 6 rapes. Go ahead and go to the next one. For the robberies, we are up 27 robberies. For aggravated assaults, they were up in the month of July, but they are coming down in the month of August.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Going back, I apologize. Going back to the rapes, am I correct that is higher this in August than it has been since September 2016? Do you have a reason for that?
Yeah, we do.
Suspect a reason for that?
We do. It's, Andy was looking at the averages as opposed to the numbers. They were up. We had a spike of reported rapes in the month of August, but a number of those, almost half of them, were actually reported in the month of August, but they occurred at a different time. Like, for instance, you have a woman who's abused by her husband, and she moved to Washington, and there was some kind of assault there. And when she reported it, she said, I'd been raped in the past by my husband. So they take a courtesy report and send it to us, so it shows up in August as a stat in August. That's when we drew our number, but the actual event occurred some time ago. And out of the total number, almost half of the rapes reported last month were out of the time frame. So it gave us a spike in the reports, but not in the spike of occurrences for the month, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thanks for the explanation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Next one, the robberies are up. Next page are our aggravated assaults. Again, they were up in July, but they're slightly starting to come down for the month of August. And our burglaries, same thing. They were up in the month of July, but they started to decrease in August. Our grand theft vehicles, we're down in August. Our larceny thefts are up for the month of August. And that's it. Any questions on those, sir?
Any questions from the Commissioner?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the next one is going to be our leaps report. And for our leaps report, we have 28 arrests, 12 fights and assaults, 11 burglary robbery, 12 traffic stops, and 10 other offenses, suspicious circumstances, and 4 persons with guns. 48% were observed by people, 19% property, 16% observations were arrests and detentions, and 9% vehicles, 8% observations. And if I can add one more thing, we are adding a coffee with the deputy on the east side of Lancaster next Thursday. So everybody's invited. What we want to do is add, in addition to our monthly one at the coffee, at the Lemon Leaf, we want to add one, like every 3 months, we want to add an additional one, like a special edition to what we have, only just to get people that can't come all the way down to the boulevard, maybe get people from the east side and the west side to show up. So this one's going to be held in the McDonald's, the remodeled McDonald's on 20th East and Avenue J. So it'll get hopefully we get a lot of turnout over there. And we don't have an agenda, you show up and, chit chat with the customers, with our community, and any questions that they may have, we got deputies there to answer them, and we do our best to provide them the information that they want. So you're all welcome to help us out. It's from 9 a.m. to 11.
That's next Thursday?
Yes, sir.
A couple questions. One, the CHP does the every 15-minute program, which I think is certainly looks effective. I don't know if we can measure whether it's changed behavior of high school kids. Is there a ride-along program that the sheriff's office offers?
Yes, we do have a ride-along program. It's offered to our civilians and to our people that are in the process of being deputy sheriffs as part of their, like a step to get hired onto the sheriff's department, give them that experience. And actually, myself and Scott are the ones that do the coordinating of a ride-along. You just fill out a form, and we do the little background check on that person, make sure we're not giving the ride-along to the wrong person, and we put them out there with a deputy.
And I've taken some ride-alongs, and I find them incredibly effective at helping me understand what a difficult job it is that you do. And it's very informative. And it occurs to me that the people that are doing ride-alongs now are in effect raised their hands as people that are already interested in and likely to go into law enforcement. And I'm wondering if there's a group of people whose eyes could be opened that might not have recognized that that's what the sheriff's department actually does. I don't know if that invites trouble or makes too much work, but I thought I'd bring it up.
No, we actually are glad to bring people to do ride-along so they can see what we do on a day-to-day basis. So we encourage everybody to do a ride-along if they can.
High school kids, can they do that?
No, you have to be 18 and over. Unless if you're in the Explorer program, then you can do your ride as an Explorer.
The second question I had, and I know that Mark had worked hard to get the LEAPS program in place. Anytime we spend money on a program that helps law enforcement, the question is that the best use of the money? I don't really know the answer to that, but I was curious what you guys thought. Are you getting the bang for your buck on the LEAPS program? Is it helpful?
Yes, I mean, it's, you always talk about competing interests and competing assets, and if you ask me, do I want 10 more deputies or do I want LEAPS? I want them both. But in reality, it's two different things. It's an apple to oranges comparison. The things that the LEAPS plane does in supplementing our Aero Bureau are amazing in that, you have a city that's 94 square miles, and if you can get that LEAPS airplane up over high-risk calls long before the deputies can get there, and a lot of times. Sometimes just by chance the deputy's close, but usually we have a response time, and the plane can be there quicker. So very often, the plane is overhead, and we can have the radio operator giving real-time intelligence to the deputies who are arriving on scene as to where the suspect might be, or do they see the suspect, that kind of stuff. It's also hugely beneficial to our watch commanders, because a lot of the stuff that we do is dangerous, either to our people or the public. For instance, foot pursuits or vehicle pursuits. And if you're the watch commander trying to decide whether or not either one of those events are becoming too dangerous and we need to shut them down for either deputy safety or the public safety, you're relying on basically what you're hearing over the radio. Whereas the LEAPS plane's overhead, we have a screen right by where the watch commander will be talking to our communication center, and he or she can be looking at the feed right then, helps them make their decisions to keep everyone as safe as possible. So it's an asset that we use a lot, and it's very helpful.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
Sure.
Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, it was originally set up as a pilot program. Have there been any other cities to adopt it?
I don't know. It's the only one that I know of offhand, other than Lakewood has their own helicopter, Sky Knight, a very small helicopter, but I've never heard of any other like this personally, but I don't know, to be honest.
I can answer that. As of today, there hasn't been another city contract for it. Most of the enforcement agencies and municipalities were focused on the potential for drone programs as it related. Now with some of the things that have happened with the FAA as it relates to drones and the rules, it's probably more inviting now as it was before, because a lot of folks had already gone out and developed and bought a complete drone program at a significant expense they can't use. So right now, drones are fine with tactical response or emergent, exigent circumstances, but not beyond that.
Kudos to Lancaster for going with the plane then.
And
Thank you.
Quickly, I realize that the stats are hard to look at, and the CompStat thing, it seemed confusing. But the long and short of it is, our Part 1 crimes were still down year-to-date, around 6%. And then the 5-year trend is down, I think, around 8% still. You're always going to have certain spikes in certain crimes. Robberies, we were up some in August. But our robbery team took down 2 crews that were doing multiple robberies. And then Kern County had a significant event that included a robbery and a murder, and those folks are in custody, and they live local. And although I can't link them to anything here specifically, if they're doing robberies there, they were probably doing robberies here. So we'll probably see we're hoping to see a drop in robberies this month. But overall, we're still down year-to-date, like I said, around 6%, and then 5-year trend is a little bit higher, closer to around 8%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope, good. Thank you so much, appreciate it. Everything you guys do, thank you. Mr. Franklin, how are you, sir?
Thank you. So, again, this is for all the Antelope Valley, not just Lancaster. But for complaints filed in the month of August, we filed 326 felonies, declined or referred for further investigation 146 cases. And year to date, we filed 1,997 felonies. And the 326 is a really nice number. It's more than, say, our closest branches next to us would be San Fernando or Van Nuys. Van Nuys filed 222, and San Fernando looks like 187. So that's a real testament to the hard work that the Sheriff's Department is doing here, and in doing what they can to suppress crime. So those are numbers that I like to see. As far as misdemeanors, we filed 799 in the month of August. We declined or referred for further investigation 108, and year to date we've filed 5,733 misdemeanors. And again, it's the same where we filed more misdemeanors than our nearest branches, Fernando and Van Nuys. So that's the report.
Do you have an idea relative to other departments, what your jury trial rate is? There's always a trade-off between disposition of the case by plea bargaining and saying we're not going to plea bargain, we're going to trial.
Right, we're by the book here in the Antelope Valley. So, in fact, I just approved August's jury trial statistics, and I believe year to date through August, we have tried 105 jury trials, and that's significantly more than any of the other branches in Region 1. I think Compton, or it's either Compton or Norwalk, has tried, I think it was Norwalk, has tried like 103 or 102. So I believe we've tried the most cases. And,
in terms of the denominators, the cases filed, and then the cases go to trial, give you a percentage that would reflect the aggressiveness of the department and how it sticks to its guns.
that I don't. I'd have to break down the statistics on the amount of filings and then the.
It certainly appears that you guys are very aggressive about sticking to your guns. I think that's something we should commend you for.
Oh, thank you. What we do, and the numbers show, I mean, that the defendants and the defense attorneys know that we're not worried about going to trial. Our job's not to dispo cases to make life easy for everybody. So the cases we settle are very beneficial to the community as far as the settlement, and it's what we think we would get at trial. So it assists. Being aggressive and going to trial actually assists in settling cases for the proper disposition. It should be.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Franklin, thank you, sir. Jocelyn?
Nothing very specific to report, just the legal division continues to work with code enforcement and with public safety to address some of our problem properties. We're really trying to focus on coming up with creative, more permanent solutions for, excuse me, for our long-time abandoned and vacant houses that are really magnets for crime, for transient occupancy, for junk, trash, and debris cause a visual blight in neighborhoods. We have a number of those that have been kind of years long, and we're really trying to tackle those pretty aggressively this year. That's sort of our focus. That's all I have today.
How many problem properties do you have?
Well, legal is probably actively working about 10, but I think overall, I can look at the Comcade and see what we've got in terms of open files on that. I can report back to you next month.
I kind of would like to know that.
Okay.
He just wants the listing.
So what's your point? Howard's mad.
That's the kind of permanent solution we're looking for, actually.
But I am curious, why is there so many with the economy being where it is? That's where I'm confused. I mean, people have been able to sell their properties for a profit, so why are we having so many properties?
I can tell you what I think the primary moat runner is. Back when the housing thing crashed, a lot of people walked away from their homes, and the banks, for a variety of reasons, never completed the foreclosure process. They didn't want the property on their books, and they didn't want to have to be responsible for maintaining them. So there are a lot of, I call them sort of limbo houses, where nobody is taking responsibility because the owner thinks that they don't own it anymore, and the bank doesn't want anything to do with it. And that's why they're still just sitting here, because there isn't anybody putting it up for sale.
But you have the capability as a city to lien the property.
Yes, but then we have to wait for the property to sell right? We don't typically foreclose on our liens. Our lien values are not really high enough to make it cost-effective to go in and do a judicial foreclosure. That's a fairly expensive process with the legal fees. But that's why, what we're doing right now is really trying to reach out to long walked away owners as well as lenders and put everybody on notice that we're going to be stepping up and taking action if somebody doesn't take responsibility. That's sort of the goal.
Okay. If the lender forecloses on this, they can't foreclose out of anything that the city may have imposed on that particular piece of property as far as any fees that exist that you've.
Any liens that are recorded on a property, if they go through the foreclosure process, will be reimbursed to the city through the escrow, yeah.
Okay. And then a lot of those properties, I understand too, are people out of the area that, out of sight, out of mind. Oh, yeah, it's my brothers, my sisters, my aunts, my uncles, whatever it may be. Yeah, we'll take care of it.
That's absolutely correct. And we still have a lot of properties up here that, when the housing boomed, a lot of people down below bought rental properties up here, and they never paid attention to them, and so now they're still not paying attention, and that's why they're in the state that they're in. I've actually got a criminal case against one owner in that regard.
Of the properties, and not with Howard's comments here a few seconds ago, is there a list of those properties out there that people look at, like, for instance, other brokers, other people that would help the city that look at this and say, no, not really?
I don't think so.
No, it would be something for discussion, again, if we start looking at, we're going to run into a similar problem as we ran into in 2008, that we stipulate something that the banks need to take possession in a certain period of time. And, look how many REO managers were out there in the wind, too, where the banks never paid them for the improvements or things they did as securing those properties. That was a huge issue over the last several years. And a number of these properties, too, as well, are folks that have passed away.
Yeah.
The house is in trust. It's gone through a local law office here locally where there's no trustee at this point. So then we have another complete issue that we have to deal with. And that's what a couple of them are. And I'm on a piggyback coming in my time with Jocelyn. Are you done?
So I'll just to follow up, I'll run the Comcate report on vacant, open and accessible houses, and I'll bring that figure back to you next month.
Yeah, I have to agree with Howard. I find it surprising that we have some,
Yeah, it doesn't
especially
make,
in today's market, you know.
I could tell you right now, it'd be a blessing, okay, as far as dealing with these properties to actually have a point of contact. The loss managers at the banks or mortgage companies don't want to talk to us either, okay, as it relates to these issues. We send out numerous letters and correspondence and discussions with no response. To piggyback on that, that has been a major focus for us this year, is identifying those quality of life issues in our community, especially as it relates to our transient population and homelessness and the impact in certain residential areas and multifamily and all those things we focus on. The captain's done a great job with the task force teams addressing crime, but again, this goes back into our proactive model of trying to get in front of problems while they're still a small problem that can be managed appropriately before it develops into another issue. Just to even give you an example, just as it relates to just neighborhoods, public safety has towed almost 500 cars this year that are in-ops or abandoned vehicles on the public highways or alleyways that are publicly owned within the city. Think about that. That's 500. It doesn't even look like we've made a dent if you drive around in some of these neighborhoods. That's something that has an immediate effect, okay, as looking at the quality and blight in an area. So those are things that we're really putting resources to, trying to focus on to get people to take ownership of the community in those neighborhoods, take them back, work on that broken window theory, address our issues with juveniles. We're working very aggressively with probation and all those agencies in that intervention model right now to try and get these kids at a very first attempt at any kind of delinquent or criminal activity. The problem we're having with the juvenile court right now is kids don't even go into court until they have 7 or 8 burglaries that the detectives have managed for any kind of filing through probation. And this is a discussion we have with Mr. Franklin all the time. There's very limited control that the district attorney has on the juvenile level, and we need to be more proactive with the agencies that are responsible. So, you know, I don't even know, Todd, probably if we even came up with a number of people that we rearrest in a period of time that they're still out on their first case or home being held, it probably would be very daunting for us to look at. But we're going to have to work through those issues because it's just what we have. We're going to do the best we can with it. So, on a positive note, I want to thank Tracy for the work she did with National Night Out and thank all the agencies, the CHP, the Sheriff's Department, CDCR, and all the service providers that came out. It was a great event. It was actually in conjunction again with the farmers market downtown, down on Fig. We did it on a little different street and a little tighter space than we normally have, but it worked out well with the farmers market. Todd came out, also the command staff from the chief came out from our region as well, and the commander as well, and that was good. They stayed down there for a while and met with and talked to everybody out there and the folks, and it was really well attended by the community. But Tracy, you did a great job putting that together, and Christy helps out a lot too, but she doesn't like me to call her out on things. So, and then with Streets of Lancaster coming up, great event. Love to see everyone out there in the public. Really, from a planning standpoint for the Sheriff's Department and the city and through IAPs and our contingency planning, it's a big event because it takes up a large area of the city, but it's a really good event. So I'm hoping that everyone has an opportunity to come out at the end of the month. And that's it.
thanks, Lee.
Any questions?
What is the status of the homeless and the closure of the shelter? What's happening?
Actually, yeah, I'll defer to Mark on that.
Thank you for that. Actually, they say, you know, you take a step back, there's a lot of steps being taken forward now. That shelter, which had sheltered about 50 to 75 people and run by Grace Resources, and, you know, God bless them for what they did, wasn't meeting the full need of the community. What's happened since then is Catherine Barger and the county's taken ownership of the issue and has established a consortium to come up with real and long-term solutions. Those will likely be new facilities, more centrally located out of the downtown area. The immediate problem of winter sheltering is being addressed by some of the churches. that are going to get together and use their facilities for a couple weeks each. That's an initiative that'll be announced soon. Catherine Barger has offered to make the MAC unit on Avenue I available for that too. I think that as we go forward, you're going to see a lot more come out. The other thing that's happened is Measure H from the county has passed. That provides $355 million a year countywide for homeless services. We have people, our council's very engaged in various aspects of all of this, and I think you're going to see a lot of that come out soon. The immediate concern is winter sheltering. We also, the last thing I'd say, Howard, if you don't mind, in terms of numbers, LASA just put out numbers, and it shows it's a regional issue. The numbers that LASA put out, and I'm not sure I believe them all, but the numbers for what they were showed that the homeless population in Lancaster went down from 1,000 to 600 in 2017. The population in the county went from 1,600 to 2,000 in Incorporated County. And the population in Palmdale went from 300 to 900 in the same point. You can quibble about the numbers, which Palmdale and the county do, but it shows it's a regional issue. And for too long, as Marvin said during the measure, when we were trying to get Measure A, Lancaster residents have been shouldering the whole issue, and that's not going to happen anymore under this council. So we'll have a report to the council on the 26th, and then we'll bring a report back to you guys in October on the status. We can agendize it if you'd like.
We certainly have had experience with the county before where they've successfully passed a measure to get funding for a particular problem. They had spent the money on themselves and did not spend much money in the Antelope Valley. Do we think we can be more successful with this funding?
I think absolutely, because the supervisor we have, Catherine Barger, has spoken to both the vice mayor and the mayor and basically assured them that we will get our fair share, and she wants to directly hear from them about what needs to be done once we come up with a solution. We have a lot of attention placed on the issue here, so I have more confidence in this pot of money than I ever had with the county. Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And I actually think the hospital's been underrepresented in the whole discussion. So we should maybe talk offline on how you get more represented.
Eddie? Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Lee. Thank you. Rick and Russ, how you guys doing? Good. Can't hear you.
Good morning. Commissioner Little, commissioners, staff. I'm going on the Mike Rivas way of doing it. It seems to work. This is Hell Week up in the Capitol. We lovingly refer to it as that. By the September 15th, which is Friday, every bill has to be off the floor for both houses. The Senate right now is dealing, as of Monday, 343 bills, 140 assembly measures. They're on their second reading. We have 30 concurrence items and 163 assembly measures that are eligible, plus 11 assembly bills and 1 Senate bill in the Senate Policy Committee, and the total number of measures pending in the Senate, 355. When I came over to City Council last night, they had 400 bills that they were trying to go through that day. They were at 117. So I don't know how late they went last night. Senate reconvened again at 10 o'clock this morning. I haven't had a chance to go back online to see where they are, but it's going to be long. Hopefully they'll be done on Friday night. If not, they will continue the session into Saturday and into the following week until they're all done. Now, once the bills are all signed, or I should approved by both houses, then they go to the governor to him to veto 95% of them. So 5% of the bills of the 7,000 that were presented this year, maybe 5% will become law. So that's where we are from the Senate office. Russ?
Any questions for Rick? Anything? Thanks, Rick.
Ditto. Real quick. It's almost the same as that, the exact same thing going on. This is the tough week right now where to report on any one bill is a tough thing because it's changing constantly. Everything's running through right now. They, as he mentioned, they have till the end of the week to push everything through and get to the governor's desk right now. The Assembly's in a little better position right now. There's a total number of 268 measures pending in the Assembly as of this morning. So we'll see how that goes. One thing I do want to mention real quick, and all the other stuff aside, they did pass what's called ACR 31, and that is naming part of the 14 freeway as Sergeant Steve Owen Memorial Highway. So that has passed through, and we'll keep you informed as to when we're going to have a dedication and the sign. They're working with Caltrans right now, getting the sign put up and everything. So that's a good part of the whole thing. So we got that going. Anything?
Okay. Anything?
Thanks, Russ.
All right.
Thank you, Russ. Okay. As part of the program, we have speaker cards on non-agendized items. Anybody can fill out a speaker card. They have 3 minutes to speak on anything that's not on the agenda. We have one speaker card, Mr. David Paul, sir.
Who's that?
He's,
Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners, good morning. I always come here to learn, and I leave more confused than ever when it's all over. I appreciate what you guys do. The homeless situation, I went to a couple of the recent consortium meetings, and, you know, there is a public will to fix these things, which is reassuring to me. I hope that money comes through with Measure H, but the problems just keep getting worse. So you look for solutions, and you just have to keep on plugging. I would like to say that on the bright side of things, the National Night Out was an excellent event, and Celebrate America last weekend. These are great things the city does. I can see the look on people's faces as they go through this, and a lot of them are just pleasantly surprised that the city puts forth this sort of effort. And they may not be able to quantify that perfectly, but they know it's a good thing the city does. So thank you for everything you do. My family loves it. We love to get out, and it builds a stronger community. It builds relationships, and that's our only hope, to come together as a community and with a common interest. So thank you again for everything you do, and I appreciate being with you. Thank you.
thank you, David. Commissioner comments, anything? Okay, then we'll stand adjourned until Wednesday, October 11th, 2017.